How's it going, everyone? I'm back again, and this time also again with a Spider-Man figure. This time of the Revoltech Amazing Yamaguchi Spider-Man 2.0. The packaging straight away is very, very different compared to the recent stuff or the last stuff that I've done for Revoltech. So previously they kind of leaned very, very heavily into the comic aesthetic, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but the package had like comic panels on the top, bottom, side, the side panels and the internal flaps as well. Everything was comic based. Even the inner card backing was comic, like really leaning towards the comic book aesthetic. Here though, we've got something much more comparatively minimalistic. And it just kind of gets straight to the point. So you've got a picture of the figure there, in this case a ripped looking and really athletic looking Spider-Man, and then you've got really plain right side of just logos, Marvel, Kyoto, Revoltech Amazing Yamaguchi, Spider-Man version 2.0, and then also the Spider-Man Marvel official logo as well currently. So pretty understated stuff here. I don't know if this is what they're going to be doing moving forward, but I don't mind it. It's also a nice thinner box as well. It's not as like the huge, it's still got that same overall square shape, but it's definitely thinner than I've had before. Of course, depending on the actual size of the figure, things may get thicker later. But here's the top of the box, again pretty understated. The bottom is also understated, and the side has a few kind of photos of the figure too. You can see that being posed and it looks really good. The back of course details a little bit more of the figure, so kind of a neutral pose of the figure too, and then a few different kind of action poses as well. It does show you which option parts he comes with, so he comes with a few different eye accessories, web accessories, and then a whole bunch of different hands as well. His webs have a green sort of tinge to them, so this is also why I think it's a Mark IV thing, plus the design of the legs, the spider. Those kind of things really make me think this is a Mark IV inspired suit. Also, I want to say this was the exclusive version that I picked up. So this itself that I'm holding right now is exactly the same. You just get an added bonus. That's just if you buy it from the Kyoto website in Japan directly. I had to use Hobby Genki to get mine, so it cost me a little bit extra. I can't remember the price off the top of my head, but for just this little bonus piece, which is just the spider sense, which I guess attaches to the back of the figure, it's really minor. It was probably at least maybe 1,500 yen or more than just buying this on its own at the retail price from any other box standard retailer. So it is a little bit extra you're paying just for this. They have done it a few more times though. So Flash, for example, is also getting a pre-order, an exclusive one as well. So I've gone for that too. Just I don't know why I just did. I just felt like it. But yeah, I think let's move on very quickly and open this figure up because I'm super excited to see what's inside. This is everything out of the box. So here's Spider-Man 2.0 standing outside, and then you've got the option parts as well. Let's start with the stand and then we'll go into the figure. Skip ahead into the video if you want to see the figure itself, and I'll leave timestamps as well. So starting with the base stand, it's pretty similar to most Revoltech figures. I can't remember the last one I even opened actually, but I think the arrangement of the holes is slightly different, but it operates the same way. You just kind of plug the arm in. You've got the arm there, and then what you also have is the claw piece, which is standard claw piece. You know how to operate that. Add the claw piece to the end here, or the alternative one is this little extra peg piece, which you can also add to this arm as it is, and then this will feed into the back of the figure. And that's something you're going to want to do because this final magnetic piece here, you can remove the arm from the base like so, and you'll notice this bit is thicker than this peg here at the end. You just want to plug this bit into the magnetic bit at the end of where the arm would have normally gone into the base, and then plug this bit into this little bit here and then into the figure. You can technically also plug this bit into the figure as well. My advice would be, if you are going to use this bit, keep this in the Spider-Man figure as much as possible and try not to keep inserting and removing, because that will end up loosening the joint. It is a Revoltech figure, and it is, I'm noticing it anyway, happening with mine where it's slightly getting a little bit loose. So just my advice, personally speaking. Then we'll go into the hands. So the hands are nicely on this kind of display piece here, or pegged piece here. This guy does come with fists, unlike the SH figure arts of Miles Morales and Gwen Stacy from Across the Spider-Verse, who don't come with fists. This guy does indeed come with fists. We'll get to see that soon in more detail as well. So starting with the hands, you've got on the right side, you've got the kind of scrunchy hands like so. Hopefully you can kind of see that. Let me bring it a bit closer. And then you get the wide open hands like so. I'm going to take this one off actually. You can see there's a slight kind of curve on the tips of the fingers, you can see there. So this one you might use as wall crawling hands. So that's its best one for me was this is wall crawling hands, or when it's kind of balancing, that's probably a good one to use. This one here, his fingers are all kind of blending in now. Let me take this one off as well if I can. There we go. This one is a nice pair of relaxed hands, which is pretty handy to use. And then you've got an alternative version like so, more action variant hand, I would suppose. And then of course you get his thwip hands, which have that kind of nice arch to them as well. So you can see how it's pegged in. It doesn't peg into the center bit, pegs into the thumb. All of them, of course, you might notice have that sort of sheen to them, a very shiny look to them. All the web detailings are on there as well, as you can see, fairly simplified. The paint is a little bit, it's not the cleanest, I would say, but it's not the end of the world either. I'm not really too bothered about it. Then we come on to Spider-Man's eyes, and against version 1.0, it is missing one pair. I can't remember which one it is now. I'll probably need to look back at it. But he's got 3 pair of additional eyes. So as you can see on the figure, you've got the regular sized eyes, which I think look fantastic. And then you've got 3 additional pairs. So you've got the kind of squinty eyes, which can be used for serious expressions. You've got the mid ones, which I think could be used for maybe slightly embarrassed expression, I guess. I don't really have a use for them right now. Can't really think of anything. And then you've got the wide-eyed ones, which can be used for, say, danger, spider sense tingling. Or you can mix them. You can mix where he's a bit suspicious and have one or the other. You can certainly mix them up if you want to. And I think that's always one of the fun things about when you get different eyes like that where it's separate. You can mix and match, and it adds a little bit more character to it, in my opinion. If you want to change the eyes, now I'll get into it in a bit more second. The eyes on my one do fall off quite a bit, actually. Let me kind of bring this out again and I'll open it. Hopefully the eyes won't go flying. We'll swap some eyes later on as well. This package, by the way, is quite similar to how the original version 1.0 was packed. So it's nice that they come in a little tray like this. But you can see there, just like the hands that we saw, and obviously from what you can see of the figure, they do have a very, they are quite shiny, basically, right? You can see the reflection on them. They are very shiny lenses, which is not a bad thing necessarily. I would say it's not bad, but when it comes to changing the eyes or handling the figure, I think that sticks to my thumbs, and that's why the eyes kind of fall out or come out for my one anyway. But we'll get into that in a second. If you do want to take them out though, you can use this little tool here, pop off the head, and then just use the little the bits that's sticking out here or this side as well, and then just poke them out. But like I said, they fall off fairly easily on mine anyway. Then we come on to Spider-Man's webs. So this is a very big difference to the version 1.0. So version 1.0, for those that don't know or don't remember, never got it for whatever reason, version 1.0 has more standard looking webbing. It doesn't have the green tinge to it like this one does. So it was pretty grey or white, depending on how you perceive your colors. And it had that kind of thinness to it that this one is much thicker. And he also came with, say, the small, medium, large size web zip line or the web shot line. Plus it came with a really long winding one as well that you could kind of wrap around something. This guy only comes with limited webs, so that might be a deal breaker. Well, shouldn't be a deal breaker, but it might be disappointing for some people, but I'm just going to tell you about it anyway. So this is his web line. He comes with a pair of web lines. And you can see a little peg at the end on both of them, which just kind of go into the fist, which I might as well bring out. Oh, no, it actually goes into the regular fist. So he doesn't come with web holding hands. Those work the same way, but actually it looks like he doesn't have the hole in them, but he does. We'll get into that in a second. So you got the peg there to plug into that hand, and then it's a nice thick kind of web line, I guess. It's much thicker than the one from before, and definitely the thickest web line that I've had of a Spider-Man figure from the Japanese toys, at least from, say, even SH Figuarts or what's the other one, Mafex. So definitely a thicker web line compared to what I've seen before. And of course it's greener, right? It's much more green than what we saw. It's green. The others weren't green, but I love it. I really love this web zip line. I love that it feels rigid, it feels solid. Don't curve it. You like it shouldn't be curved. I'm just gonna risk it now, but yeah, don't bend or curve it. It is supposed to stay straight as a straight shot, but it's very rigid. It looks great. The light on it is really nice. Depending on how the light hits this thing, I love the way the green kind of shines through. It kind of looks poisonous at times. It kind of looks eerily like magical at times, I guess. It just looks really nice. I love the fact that he comes with a pair of them. Yeah, I really love it. It's probably one of my favorite things of the figure for sure. Staying with the webs, he does also come with the web sprayed effect part, I guess you can call it that. So similar sort of greenness to it and some translucency as well. The version 1.0 didn't come with something like this. I can't remember if he did or didn't. I'll have to look back in the box. But this, I believe, is unique to this. And just like the web zip line, it's got the peg to attach to the thwip hand, which I can show you, and I will show you. Actually, why did I say the fist? Because before, actually, let me rewind a bit. Yeah, of course, you can plug this into the thwip hand. You can see there's a peg hole right there where he would be pulling the trigger, and you can just add it in like so. I personally don't think they fit too great. I can't remember which hand it was, but they kind of fell out a little bit too easy. But hopefully yours will be okay. But yeah, you can see it looks super good. It just looks so good. That straight shot looks amazing. But then this web spread one is also really cool to do as well. I'm going to add that in. Can't see it on the camera. There we go. It feels like it's in. There we go. So we've got the spray shot there, which looks great as well. So you can add this. You've got a pair to play around with. Slipping away. There you go. You got a pair to do as well. And yeah, it looks great. It's got a nice greenness to it as well. And I like it. It might not be everyone's cup of tea, but I really like it. And then we come on to his web wings, or his web gliders, whatever you want to call them. The bits is his web armpits. So he comes with a pair of those, of course. And you can see there's a little peg right there. Same thing on the other one there as well. That plugs into the back. We'll show you that later on in the video once we get more into the figure. And of course, it's got that same green, translucent green to it as well. They don't fit flush. There's a little arch to it. You can see this arch right there. Here's the other side of the arch there. And it looks good. By the way, it's got the web lines there, which you can actually feel the raised webbing on them, which feels nice. Same thing with these, which I didn't mention as well. So it feels nice as well. Overall, this web armpit line, the web spread, and the webbing, I actually really like these, and they're sculpted really well. Now, this little extra final piece here isn't included in the box. This is a bonus if you bought it from Kyoto directly. I didn't actually buy it from Kyoto directly. I bought mine from Hobby Genki, who listed the Kyoto version, but the charge, I think it was 1,500 yen, might have been a bit more extra just for this. So honestly, save some money, make this yourself. It's, you know, web lines, I'm sorry, not web lines, it's the Spider Sense lines on a film of plastic. Now it's got a bit of a protective layer on it that I've left on. You can just make this yourself or add it into your photographs in post edit. So don't feel sad if you didn't buy this. It's not the end of the world. It's okay, the fact that you can get a bonus, but it's not the end of the world. I'd rather it be not the end of the world, save some money, than be something so critical that I feel like I have to pay money for. That's just my personal view. So again, don't be sad if you don't get it. You can make one of these really simply yourself. Now let's jump into the figure. As you can tell straight away, and since it's kind of been sitting in the background, he's a very shiny looking figure. I had to sleep on this guy for a little bit to kind of gather my thoughts, and I'll kind of speak over it in a as we go through it actually. So the shininess is good and bad. So naturally, doing these videos, I've got extreme light on all of them to make sure I'm showing the product fully and clearly. But in a realistic environment on your own lighting display, you're probably not going to have this harsh lighting on it. And I wouldn't recommend it either, because this guy is super shiny. He, I think, looks much better in just normal light or just a simple soft lamp. And the blues end up looking a little bit more subdued, in my opinion, because of that. At the moment, he looks extremely bright. The blues to me are super vivid. The reds are fine. I'm actually fine with the reds, but the blue is definitely vivid. Even getting him out of the box was very, very vivid. So I prefer my Spider-Man outfits to have a little bit of a darker hint of blue to it, and maybe not as dark as the version 1.0, but definitely a little bit darker than this. That's just a personal preference of mine. But yeah, with this kind of extreme light, he's looking extremely shiny than he probably would on the average kind of display or shelf, right? So yeah, think of it from that point of view. There's pros and cons to it as well. Overall though, when it comes to the rest of him, aesthetically speaking, I love his sculpt for the most part. I think his muscle definition is super, super good. He's got he's doing athletics and gymnastics and all of this kind of, like, he's ripped. This guy's probably got like 0% body fat or something, but he looks absolutely shredded. I really love the torso. Just everything about the torso is super well defined. It's so superior, in my opinion anyway, compared to version 1.0, which I'm going to bring out later. He just looks so amazing. His legs are also super duper ripped as well, which look good. However, the thing I don't like about the legs is sometimes the legs kind of look like, the muscle definition looks almost like creases of someone wearing silk pants, because the texture on the costume as well, which I haven't actually talked about the texture, is less defined on the bottom half of the figure as it versus the kind of midsection, right? So the honeycomb pattern, which looks great. I really love that pattern on this figure. I actually really, really love it. But it's super less. Definitely less. Not the end of the world. I quite like it for that. I thought maybe I would prefer the same kind of density, I guess, or clarity on the whole figure. But actually, I think I prefer it as it is, so that's fine. But yeah, his pants, or his legs, sometimes, to me, it looks a bit like creased pants. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure sold on the leg definition, but definitely midsection, he looks super, super good. I haven't talked about the arms yet because I'm gonna get to that in a second, and same with the head. The rest of the legs, he's got slightly bigger calves definition compared to the first version of the figure. Part of me feels like they're almost a bit too kind of defined, I feel. But that might be because the boot itself is still kind of cut here. You can see he's got a separate swivel bit, which we'll get into in a second. I don't know. I feel like this should definitely be a little bit slimmer personally. And then we come down to his feet. I don't like his feet. I'm going to be honest with you. The original one also had tiny feet and made him a little bit hard to stand. But he had thinner feet. Like, I guess, is that the bridge? The foot bridge? Is that the foot bridge? The foot arch? I can't remember which one the top bit is called. But yeah, it's too high for me. And I don't like it. It's one of the first things I noticed about the figure as well. I don't like it. This should definitely be like trimmed down a bit. I prefer the first version of it. The actual size of the foot, the footprint itself is probably about the same, I guess. But yeah, I don't like his foot personally. It's not the end of the world, I guess, either. But I think it's something that I would probably change personally. Let's come back up a little bit again. It's back to his waist. So his waist has the little belt bit as a separate piece. So he's actually got it colored underneath. If you can kind of see closely there, it is painted still. But then it also comes on a separate piece, which can sometimes be weird when you're actually like playing with it and articulating the figure. It gets stuck here and there, or it just looks odd. I don't really know why they did that. They could have just left it, I think. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe they could have just attached it there. I don't know. It just seems like a strange thing to just have as a separate piece for this one. But now let's get on to the arms. Now, straight away, the shoulders haven't really changed for this figure versus the other one. They're still butt ugly. I think when I first had the version 1.0, I didn't mind it, and I think probably because it was one of my first figures, I guess, and I just kind of accepted it. But I definitely think the shoulders for this Spider-Man are such a glaring issue if you don't want to get him into a kind of pose that covers it. But there's so many poses where they're just so exposed because these joints are much bigger. That's a big ball joint. It's a big ball joint, honestly. And the same is the case with the elbow as well. So it's just too big for me. I don't know why they're such big balls. So they really just kind of break the figure up so much. Because like if I cover him up, like just here like this, suddenly he just looks so much better, right? So it's just that bit is disappointing for me. And I wouldn't be surprised if some people would just straight up say no, they don't want this figure because of those big bull shoulders. So it sucks, but you can, get him into a pose and cover it. So it's not the end of the world, but definitely something that I wish they would change in the future, in a 3.0. I don't know. But definitely the weakest part of the figure when it comes to the looks is the shoulders. And then, like I said, the arms, the elbows do have a similar sort of issue. Not as bad, but they do definitely stick out a bit. Even when you bend them, you can see them. I feel worse than version 1.0. But yeah, those two bits are the worst bits for me. His neck is really sculpted nicely. His neck is improved. He can have a straight neck now rather than arch forward. So the version 1.0 was more like this. He's got a better head as well because now he's got just a full head rather than having the front part of the head and then the back part, which was two separate pieces of the skull. And it was kind of weird looking for version 1.0. So this is definitely a marked improvement for the version 2.0. Generally, the head sculpt looks really good. I like it. The web lines, it's fine. It's fine. Overall, decent looking figure. Aesthetically, I think he looks great. Sorry, sculpt-wise, I think it's generally quite good. The shoulders definitely let it down for me, for sure. But yeah, he looks good. This is the backside, and it's quite good as well. He's got the peg holes on the side to add the web armpits on, plus the stand if you want to use the stand. He's ripped on the back as well. His butt is super defined. Everything is, when it comes to musculature, he looks super duper defined. So that's great as well. Oh, and before I forget, something else that he's got, because I guess we can talk about it in articulation too, is he's got the butterfly bit, or the kind of chest expansion, I guess. But let's kind of talk about articulation, and then we'll get to that as well. So articulation, what do you expect, right? He's going to be super extreme, so he can look down like that, but then he can bring his neck down. So he's got a really amazing way to look down. You are going to start seeing some gaps here and there, though. Just naturally, it's going to be the case. He can look up, so just focus on the head for the time being. This is how far his head goes up, which is excellent. His neck can move, as we saw, down, but up, it ends up having this exposed gap here really easily. So I get irritated by that. So I try and max it here or reset it about here, because I don't like to see that big gap. And then I just kind of do this, which I think is perfectly fine. It looks super good. Anyway, his shoulders, although they are super ugly, he's got excellent range of motion here. Bring his arms across like so, and around, and then up. So excellent range of motion there. Bicep cup, he does also have that. Mine, I should point out, was basically stuck in the beginning, but I kind of warmed it up and it's okay. So that's fine there. And then the elbow, we kind of saw that early on. Elbow, his joints back to front now. That can sometimes happen with these. It's a big ball joint, but there we go. That's the elbow. I don't really like the way it looks from behind, but that is what it is. And then he's also got, you can swivel it. So sometimes I get his arms back to front. Then we come on to his hand, which is great as well there. He also has this extra joint, which most Revoltech figures have now, that version 1.0 Spider-Man didn't have. So that's the chest expansion piece here. So he can pull out and jut his chest forward. You can see, hopefully you can see that. So it's kind of cut here, and then it should match up, or you can match up with the web lines as well, so it doesn't look odd, which I think is great. But if you bring it too forward, it will just cover the legs of the spider insignia. I think the right one's a bit tight there. There we go. It covers the legs a little bit. You can see it's fine. Not a super big, it's not a super amount, so it's fine. But yeah, he can kind of, let me show you the side view of it. So he juts his, pulls his arm back, so that's pretty good. And this is the back view of it. So the back of the spider shoulder blades, it looks really good. I think it's great, and I'm glad that they actually included it, because it was definitely an oversight, not an oversight, but something that was missing in version 1.0 of Spider-Man that a lot of other Revoltech superhero figures do have now. So it makes sense that they added it for 2.0 over here. We've got the torso bit, which is excellent. His torso, I feel, is much smoother and way better than version 1.0. So you can see this on front view. It's excellent. This is super good. Look at those muscles, man. That definition is so good. And if it looks so smooth, it is smooth. I should probably just make this into an ASMR, just me just doing this, right? Doesn't it look great? But no, that's really good. I love it. So it's one of those that it doesn't just get stuck. You can kind of do minutiae sort of kind of details on it, which is great. So yeah, that's probably one of my favorite bits of this figure. And then we come down to the bottom portion here. Right there, a little bit more noisy and creaky, I guess. But as I mentioned, the belt bit is where things get a little bit potentially unsightly and things get a little bit stuck or trapped. Not the end of the world. You can play around with it and free it up. So just kind of tinker with it a little bit. Remember, this is a Revoltech figure, so it takes a little bit more hands-on, a little bit more finessing when it comes to articulating and posing. But that's the bottom of the figure there. It's perfectly fine as well. I think that's probably on par with version 1.0. The legs, they are pretty much the same as 1.0, just slightly more defined at the hips here. So you can see those ripped kind of details there. So he's got perfect splits. There is no denying his splits are flipping amazing. Right, that was so easy to do. That's all I need to do is pull his legs apart. He can get crotched to the ground. Very good. It's beyond perfect splits. I don't see a lot of figures that can do that. So this guy can do perfect splits, and not just that way, he can also do it this way too. So again, perfect splits. So that's awesome to see. Again though, with Revoltech figures, it's got this kind of slightly unique kind of joint to it. So if you want to twist it at this point here and try and get certain high kicks, you just have to tinker with it a little bit. There is this little, let's call it a tab here, if you can see. Original Spider-Man had a slightly smaller tab. A lot of the kind of Revoltech figures I've got anyway have this sort of thing. I believe Captain America had it as well. I don't really know why it's got to need to have that little tab. I think they could have just had it kind of plain. Not the end of the world, just something I keep thinking about, because it gets stuck sometimes here. And then I have to kind of try and free it. But yeah, his legs are really great. Just kind of show you that kicking up here. Again, he can do splits, so you can pretty much get it how you want. Just twist it how you want. It's really good. The knee is different to version 1.0 Spider-Man. 1.0 Spider-Man had a ball joint on the knee. This guy's just got a hinge. I think most Revoltechs now have a hinge there. At least the ones I can remember. Captain America's the one I'm really just kind of keep thinking back to. He has a hinge there, which looks good. It's different here though. So 1.0 Spider-Man did not have a kneecap, but a lot of the Revoltech stuff do have kneecaps, and it's on a tiny ball joint. This one has no ball joint, so it kind of looks like a really extended boot or like a bone that's just kind of sticking out. So I think I prefer the little tiny ball joint, personally speaking, but I guess I'll just accept it and just deal with that. Yeah, I do definitely prefer it. It is soft though. There's a bit of flex to it. You can kind of see. So maybe keep that in mind. You could probably just kind of heat it up. If you're going to keep it long term in, say, a bent position, you can heat it up, I'm sure, and then have it kind of look a little bit more flush. But I think overall, I would prefer the kneecap to be a little bit of on that little small ball joint. I think that's what I'm thinking or preferring right now anyway. But it looks good. The knee bend otherwise is really good, and it has that nice, really tight bend, which I really love from acrobatic or figures or based on characters that have extreme mobility and flexibility like Spider-Man does. So seeing that supremely awesome tight kissing and bend is just so sublime to see. Continuing a little bit downwards with the leg. So as I mentioned with the boot, there is a cut there, and it's actually on a bit of a joint, so it can actually bend. So let me try and bring this forward a bit, because I was able to see the joint. There we go. If I pull it out, you can see there it is actually on a bit of a hinge. You can see that. So there's a hinge to it, so you can almost bend his leg so it looks broken. I don't really need that bit. I think I would prefer it just be flush and clean. Maybe just a swivel is fine for me, because he's got so much range of motion at the crotch area and the hips that I don't necessarily need that bit like it is right now. It's too much for me. They could have just kept it much more simple and left it much cleaner, because even there it doesn't look too broken. But I still just think there's a difference, right? There's a color difference between, on my one, this is what I meant. There's a color difference between his boots down to this bit on the calf of the actual leg itself. So personally, I think no need for this extra cut. It's not just Spider-Man that has this. Other superheroes have it as well. But if someone like Captain America, again, I go back to Captain America, I think it made sense. For Spider-Man, I don't super need it. I just rather have a cleaner look. So yeah, something worth thinking about for a 3.0 as well. Then we come down to the ankle. The ankle is also quite, I'm going to pause there. It's generally decent, but like it's fine. Kind of pointing toes forward, looks fine. But upwards, this is why I also want this bit of the foot to be reduced, because it gets jammed there. And so if I'm trying to pose this guy to squat, like really deep squat, which is what I really want from a Spider-Man figure. And when I say deep squat, I want him to do basically Asian squat on his heels, not on his toes. That's basically as far as he can get, really, because the foot gets in the way. So I just don't like that really thick foot. So yeah, that's probably one of the main things I don't like about the figure. I know it sounds weird, but I just don't like that. I just prefer a slightly thinner foot shape to Spider-Man. So yeah, just kind of gets a bit annoying there. Then we finish with the toe. The toe moves up like so, and it can also bend down where it just looks a little bit goofy. It happens a lot with my one. But that's pretty much his articulation. I think I've covered everything. This is one of those figures that has so much articulation, dynamic posing possible, that I'll probably skip something here or there. But as I mentioned though, yeah, he is a Revoltech figure, so getting him into the best potential pose and also covering, say, the shoulders might take a little bit of work. So I'm going to quickly try that here. Let's just say he's doing his web line thing, and yeah, so it can take a little bit of work sometimes. You still have the big shoulder joint shown, and then to kind of bring that there, I suppose. But yeah, he doesn't look bad. Just play around with him. He can definitely be posed, but I think one of the issues I had with him is it's the shoulders. The shoulders really, really spoil the look of the figure for me. Like, I can get over this because you can easily tidy that up fairly easily, right? Just crunching forward a bit more. But do you see what I'm saying? The shoulders really break this figure. Like that, the look of the figure. Like he's so well sculpted everywhere else, but the shoulders just, I'm looking at it from like in real life and also in the camera, And the shoulders just really spoil it. I don't know why they went with these shoulders. Really, really sucks. His foot sometimes gets annoying, by the way, because like I said, it bends down. So just keep an eye on that too. But dang, those shoulders really, really, they annoy me. Okay, let's move on. The shoulders annoy me, but articulation-wise, he's very fun to play around with. You're going to get him, like, just look how amazing this guy looks. Anyway, let's move on. Let's swap some parts. Right, starting with the head, that's pretty easy. Just pop the head off, like so. And this is where, actually, fortunately, the eyes didn't come out for me. Like, they normally do come out for me. One thing I'll quickly say right now is when you do put the head on, if your eyes are loose like mine, or come out easily like mine, remember to align the ball joint first, or do the eyes after, because I had this issue where you see this, the ball joint like ends up hitting the eye. So just make sure you get the head on first and then maybe do the eye. So the eyes, they're tiny. Look at that, it's tiny, so you don't want to lose it. So mine came out already. If not, then of course use the handy tool that you supplied. Let's gonna change it to one of these eyes. I end up closing it. We'll use any eye that ends up coming out once I can get this thing open. Come on, guy, open. There we go. I'm gonna use the big one because I really like that one. Actually, no. Yeah, we'll stick to it now. I've picked it up. Hopefully it stays in, because like I said, it is shiny. It's got that kind of gloss to it that ends up sometimes sticking to my fingers. I think the eyes were a little bit fiddly for me personally, to the point it got a little bit annoying. They weren't as smooth or as straightforward as, say, SH Figuarts was. But there we go. That's the left eye change. It's so minor. Let me bring it forward. It's super minor, but it does look good. Play around with the eyes and mix and match them to get the expression that you want. It is quite fun and it looks quite cool too. Then what can we do afterwards is changing his hands. So let's pull off the right hand. There we go, on a peg like so. Pretty straightforward so far. Fortunately, touch wood, where have I got wood? I don't think I've got any wood near me. Fortunately, so far his joints have held up. I haven't had super clunky joints that a lot of Revoltech stuff does, like especially 1.01. I'm going to change it to the thwip hand, which is here. Thankfully, it's the right hand. So this was on up. Because he is a bit of a glossy figure and shiny. Oh, it sometimes is fiddly from that point of view. But there we go. Add the hand in like so. It was nice and easy to do. Once again, I'm hoping the joints hold up. Add that web spread one there. Boom. There we go. Looks good. I guess you can cover his shoulder joint like this, right? Just bring it up and have him shoot a web shot out, right? Pretty simple, I guess. There we go. Bam. Looks okay. And that's quite simple to do. You can swap this out with the web line. Let's do that because I really like this web line. This web line is so good. It looks great. I love it. Don't you love it? I love it. If you don't like it, then, hey man, that's just your opinion. But I like it. Here we go. The web line. Boom. Looks great. Side profile view, front view, it looks great. The green just really makes it pop, so I love it for that. Oh, I don't want to lose his eyes. And then that's basically, no, it's not it. It's not it because we've got the back. Of course, we've got his little armpits, right? So here's one of them. I actually can't remember which way it goes. I think it's this way. It should be arched this way, I believe. Let me check. We'll wing it. Wing it. There we go. And so, yeah, so it sits about like that. You can swivel it if you need to. Again, play around with the posing. Bring his arm up. I'm going to leave his hand just like that. You can use one of these other hands, right, to make sure he's gliding. Say this. Yeah, let's just change it. You know what? We're here. This video is long already. And it's Spider-Man, so we might as well talk about him fully and expose him fully. Oh, there we go. I did that hand. Nice and simple. I'm going to add this back in. It does sometimes come out for me. Like so, there we go. Add that in. And then just make sure it kind of covers it so it looks like it's attached. I guess you can swivel it a bit more. It does come out, like I said, easy on my ones. I'm going to try and get that in. So there, it kind of looks like it's attached. Just play around with the angles, but there we go. It looks good. Bring it forward a bit. And then do the same thing for the left armpit as well. I think it looks good, actually. I didn't think I'd like these as much, but they kind of make the figure look a little bit different to your bog standard Spider-Man kind of figure. So it's an interesting piece for sure, and I'd say play around with that. And then to show you the bonus part. So the bonus part actually just plugs into the back. So this plugs into this little slit here, which I've already done, and then plug this into the back like so. You've also got then another hole here to add if you're going to use the stand, for example, which, yeah, because you've used it. So there, that's what he looks like. I'm going to cover this neck bit because it's so annoying. It's something that you have to play around with the angle to make sure it looks like it's actually like tingling and working. So that's pretty much what it's going to look like. I'm going to angle it a little bit more. That neck is so annoying, you know that, right? There we go. Like I said, make it yourself. It's probably going to be a lot more quicker for you to do it and more efficient and cheaper for sure to just make it. And you might even make it look much better than that, to be honest. That's really all there is to the Spider-Man. Like I said, pretty straightforward. Unfortunately, his joints have held up for me so far. Nothing supremely loose at this point. I've articulated him and moved him around quite a bit so far. The worst is probably the back joint, because it was my own fault. I kept inserting and removing the little peg bit, so keep that in mind. I would say better to keep this inside as much as possible, unless you're definitely not going to use it. But everything else kind of held up pretty well. But it is Revoltech. Over time, I'm sure it will definitely loosen up. So if you don't have a Revoltech, keep that in mind if you're thinking about buying this, because Revoltech figures do have an issue of loosening up over time, whether it's the joint itself, the swivel, or the peg end up coming off, the arm comes off. And I'll kind of show you that maybe with this Spider-Man, because now we're going to do a quick comparison. When I say quick, well, God knows how long quick is going to be, because I like to talk. So, Spider-Man 1.0 from Revoltech on the right, Spider-Man 2.0 on the left. Which one do you prefer from immediate looks? Both are kind of posed really silly at the moment, but ignore that. As that aside, which one do you prefer? Right, straight away for me, like I said, this guy on the left is sculpted extremely well, extremely 0% fat, and I like it for that. He looks great. But you can see, as I mentioned, the shoulders are the biggest issue on both figures, and I'm surprised they didn't change that. So I'm going to bring the shoulders as much the best as I can down for 1.0, and that's what it's going to look like. And then same thing for 2.0. Still glaring issue. I find that it's probably a bigger issue for me on the left guy than it is on the right one. Partly because the right one had the double ball joint thing. It's an old Revoltech system there versus this one. So either way, both aren't super good when it comes to the shoulder. When I mentioned the head as well, you can see this guy actually can go straight. This guy can't. Plus he's got that little extra piece there for his head, which was something some people didn't like, but that also was reason why he was able to go up so far. This guy, you know, the way the guy on the left can look up is more than enough for me anyway. Like, well, I like it that much, maybe not more than enough, but he can go a little bit extra, not the end of the world though, so the difference is fine. The midsection, like I said, is very, very different. So he's got the one kind of crotch piece all connected. This guy's in a bit more, two pieces there. And then let me demonstrate the torso section. Very clicky. So back then, Revoltech used to use that kind of Revoltech clicky ratchet sort of thing. Twist is fine, but yeah, he's definitely not as smooth. This would not make a good ASMR, but this one, come on, look at this guy. Look at this guy. Look at this guy. Does that not look good? I'm moving around. My name is Spider-Man. I'm your best nightmare. I'm not your nightmare. I'm your best dream. Yeah, anyway, Spider-Man looks great there. He has a much superior midsection on 2.0 versus 1.0. Let me straighten them up. They kind of look super weird now. Let me straighten them up. Yeah, so entire midsection is much, much better and improved in 2.0. The back is different. Oh, of course, you got the little hinge bit there, which is non-existent in 1.0, and I think it's really good to have it in 2.0. The rest is fairly similar, honestly speaking. Like, it looks more defined here. The sculpt is much more different, but they function pretty much the same. I would say it's easier though. Like, this is why, because you have to twist his legs a little bit more to get the splits, and because he's on that weird ball joint, it's just kind of weird. His legs are a little bit more strange, definitely on 1.0, and much easier to do on 2.0, but they fairly or pretty much function in the same way. He's also got the swivel here. Where's this? That bit there. Actually, before I continue on, the knee is definitely different. 1.0 had the ball joint, as we saw. This is basically this ball joint size is basically what 2.0 has on the bloody elbow. It's huge, right? But yeah, he had the ball joint there, whereas 2.0 is just on a hinge. No kneecap bend. Oh yeah, I always forget that. The 1.0, the knee bend was so strange because it just kind of twisted in a way that, yeah, it ended up being off. Like it wasn't a direct twist for me anyway, so it's off. But because of the no kneecap, he's got the exposed ball joint. Whereas at least, yeah, definitely 2.0 Spider-Man has a much cleaner looking knee from most directions. It looks a bit more funny there, but it's still much, much better. And it almost looks like just an addition to his suit, you might say, but it's much better than 1.0. Coming back down again to the top section of the boot, he's still got that swivel, bit more articulation here because this guy can bend a little bit. Actually, you can give him the broken leg look. The toe is about the same, ankle is basically the same, but the arch thing is less, like on 1.0 back here, and then it's just he's got fat foot for the 2.0, but the hinge is the same, right? Hinges don't really change. I think size wise is about the same, I guess. He's probably got bigger feet, he's got longer feet in 1.0, longer feet. But yeah, I think I still prefer this 1.0's feet. But generally, yeah, they have some similarities in ways, but for the most part, it definitely is a 2.0 figure. It's a much improved figure when it comes to the articulation. There's no question about that. When it comes to looks as well, I think 2.0 is definitely better. Coloration wise though, I think I prefer, I mean, yeah, let's just say 2.0 because it's newer. But I did say though, I would prefer slightly darker blues. Maybe not as dark as this blue on 1.0, but something in between would have been nice. Some people might also prefer this more plain look rather than the honeycomb texture, which I personally like here. I really do like it, but I would also be fine if it was just a bit more, well, without the texture. Let's just keep it that way, right? What else is there? I think that pretty much covers it, right? Yeah, pretty much covers it. Which one did you prefer? The left one or the right one? I mean, for me, it's easy. It is the left one for sure. It isn't perfect by any means. This one is not perfect by any means, but it's a needed improvement, but there are still some issues. Overall, I do like the figure. I had to sleep on it a bit because there's just a couple of things that I didn't like or something that was a bit of a question mark to me. Now, I love the way the figure looks for the most part, but the biggest issue that I have, and I think people are probably going to agree with me on this, same as version 1.0, the shoulders. The shoulders are a huge glaring visual mistake. I don't like them. I think they are hideous. But if you're a dab hand at posing these figures, which is probably why you're going to buy this, then the pose you get it in, the angle you get it in, you're probably going to cover it a little bit or disguise it a little bit. But there's still going to be an issue. They're that hideously big that I just hope they would have fixed that somehow. So maybe in the 3.0, they'll find a solution to that. Now, the elbows aren't as bad, still kind of hideous looking. And then the rest of the figure, I think, looks great. The midsection is by far one of my favorite and things I'm impressed about with the figure is such smooth articulation in that entire midsection. I think this is probably the smoothest midsection I've had in a Revoltech figure. The suit, maybe because it's a Mark IV inspired suit with that kind of shiny look to it, it might not be everyone's cup of tea. Now that they've done it, I think they can move on to a more classic style look to it. I would be really open to that and try and fix the shoulders as well. But I do like the texture on the blue. The honeycomb pattern again in the midsection looks absolutely awesome. So yeah, it's a very good figure with a few issues. If you're planning to get this figure or you've got it already, let me know what you thought about down below. Or if I've missed anything, let me know. And I'll catch you in the next video. Take care.